if I want that kind of world, I have to not only be the one to initiate it, but I also have to be willing to receive it when it's my turn.
What we resist persists.
Sometimes those moments of desperation actually are those moments when we realize we're pushed to our limits.
Is the devotional leadership more of this feminine approach?
Devotional leadership is deeply relational.
We're isolating ourselves.
We need each other.
Hello, Brave Table fam. Welcome to another episode of The Brave Table. I'm your host, Dr. Neeta, and this is your destination, your oasis to be all things just a little bit more brave in your actions, your relationships, and in your life. And today, I want to ask you, what is your relationship to leadership? What is your relationship with leadership? Can leadership be a devotion? Can it be a spiritual practice? Whether you are leading the little ones in your life, whether you are leading your friends group, whether you are perhaps stepping out of corporate and stepping into your own sense of leadership, maybe you are coming into your own sovereignty around leadership. What does that actually mean to you? My guest today has had over 2 decades worth of experience in this topic, and we go into today talking about and with leadership coach and retreat facilitator and founder of Global Sisterhood Day. She is the one, she is the only, Nisha Moodley, and she is with us at the Brave Table. She is a women's leadership mentor, the founder of Global Sisterhood Day, the host of the Devotion podcast I love so much, and she is a mama of 2. She's also a biracial woman with a background in training and health and executive coaching, ancestral healing work, energy healing, community building, and she has a unique relationship to the ecology of leadership and the ability to catalyze deep growth for her clients. Her work centers around the path of matriarchal leadership. Oof, I love that. As an expression for our devotional care. For nearly 2 decades, she's guided intimate counsels, online courses, and over 60 retreats supporting women to liberate their leadership and weave in their gifts and service for a more beautiful world. I love this so much. And in this episode, we are going to talk about what devotional leadership is. We are going to talk about motherhood. She's got 2 little ones, and what it looks like to fall in love again and date while having kids. This episode is so power-packed, and I think it's going to be one of those episodes that you are going to share with a loved one, a friend, a bestie. So buckle up, because we are in for a juicy ride this week with Nisha Moodley on the Brave Table. Oh, hello, Queen.
Neeta.
Oh,
thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be sitting in the same room as you.
In the same space.
What a treat.
Well, I feel like I've been fangirling you for years. You're one of the OG queens that have really anchored in the space, the intersection of spirituality, feminine leadership, and growth. And so take us through kind of your journey, as much as you want to share, as little as you want to share. How did you come into this work of devotional leadership?
Thank you for those words. So kind. So I was a little girl that was really, really passionate about a sense of justice. I had a deep, innate sense of justice. I want to say it was innate, but it was certainly shaped by the family and the families that I grew up in. So my mom I call my mama an artist, democracy nerd. So my mom is an artist now she is, that's just who she is. And also in her retirement years, she makes art. She's a quilter, beautiful art. And she was the deputy chief electoral officer, which is the fancy title for the person or one of the few people who ran elections in the province in Canada that I grew up in.
Oh, wow.
And my mom would also consult with the UN, traveling around the world to regions that were having their first attempt at a democratic election, so that she could report back to the UN and say, here's what's going well, here's what's not going well. And so she's just deeply passionate about democracy. So kitchen table talk at my mom's house, my parents were divorced. So kitchen table talk was very passionate talk about politics, about democracy, about what's right, and about justice. On my dad's side, my family escaped apartheid South Africa. And so my family is from India. They went to South Africa as indentured laborers, as many Indian people did. Huge Indian diaspora.
Population.
Yeah, huge in South Africa. And were there for many generations. And a lot of my family members were part of the resistance movement during apartheid. And so again, the TV was on. We were watching Mandela. My grandmother was yelling at the television, and there were passionate conversations about justice, about equality, about equity. And so that's just who I am. And then as a kid was the kind of kid that like befriended the new girl in class and tried to figure out like, who do I think her actual best friends are? And let me try to matchmake her with her new best friends. And, you know, I like went for class president and valedictorian. I ended up becoming class president and valedictorian in elementary school. I'm not saying this is like
amazing.
This is not quite
destined.
the flex it sounds like, but like, I'm saying this to say like, even as a child, I had these sort of leadership qualities and really wanted to step up and also just like fundraise for this thing and that thing. And so it's just in me. And then years later, when I hit this inflection point in my life, as many of us do, where I was like, okay, I had been working in the cosmetics industry for a decade, kind of just fell into that. And I realized like, I'm not passionate about this. Like, I want to do something that feels like me, that feels like it's making a difference, and where I feel like challenged in a new way, in a different way. And I was really soul searching around that time. This is my early to sort of mid 20s, really soul searching, trying to figure out what did I want to do when I grew up, i.e. now. What did I want to do? And I sort of was like, do I want to become a lawyer and do social justice law? Do I want to become an elementary school teacher? And I determined at the time that like the ultimate sort of stick it to the man grassroots movement was health. And so I studied health and nutrition, was very passionate about that. And I ended up focusing on serving women around emotional eating and compulsive eating.
Oh, wow.
And because that had been a path for me. And what I noticed was that 100% of the time, when the focus went from this self-obsession, which there's no blame in it, it is driven by culture's narratives about what a woman should be, right? So, oh my gosh, I have to eat this in order to be thin enough, in order to be beautiful enough, in order to earn love. And as soon as their relationship with food and their body and the earth started to heal, and they started to have a deep sense of, I am whole, like I am me, I am just fine, I am perfect the way that I am. Doesn't mean that I don't have any growth to do, but there's nothing broken here. And as soon as they recognized that, what I watched was like kind of overnight, their focus shifted to, what do I want to do? Like, how do I want to give? How do I want to serve? How do I want to show up out in the world? And that was really interesting to me. And I could have very easily have stayed doing that work around food and nutrition because it still is a big passion of mine. But I got really interested in supporting the what's next, where they wanted to take all of that life force energy, passion, and care and direct it. And so I started sort of organically supporting them around their work out in the world and what they were bringing out in the world. And I have to say, Neeta, after a while, as I recognized like, oh, this is a shift. Like, this is really what my work is and what it wants to be. I was like, no, thank you. Can I get another assignment? Like, God, do you have anything else for me? Like, who am I to do this? And so I think this is true for a lot of us, that when we find the thing that feels like the deep soul calling, now it could be motherhood, it could be finding a true deep love partnership, it could be, our work in the world, like an expression of our dharma through our work. That when we really find that person, that thing, that path that is truly ours, there's often we think we're going to be so relieved. And actually, I find what often happens is we're like, oh no, it's here. Because actually saying yes to that path is perhaps equal parts exhilarating and terrifying.
Oh my gosh. I would even add to that. Yeah. Scary.
Maybe more terrifying.
Yeah, scary beyond belief.
Scary beyond belief, because it's going to call all of us forward. It's going to ask us to heal the deepest wounds, face the darkest stuff inside of us, all the questions. And so all of the things that I had grappled with silently inside of myself since I was a little brown girl, and all the kids were asking me, what are you?
Right.
All of those things that were inside of me that essentially took what are you to who am I? And who am I to do this? I don't have a PhD. I don't have an MBA. I don't come from the corporate world. Who am I to do this work, even though I'm so called? And that has been like just the grapple of my life, really,
Right. Well,
for the last 15 years, essentially.
Well, but I also want to reflect back, because I feel like, you know, from the being a little girl thrown into the throes of both your mom's lineage and your dad's lineage, that fire of leadership has always been in you.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's oftentimes, you know, what we resist persists, and it'll constantly like follow you as if it's also just like embedded in your DNA. And, you know, oftentimes we resist it, or we put it away, or we think that, oh, that thing's too easy, so that can't be my soul's calling. I that's just who I am. That's just what I do. I put people together, but I don't know if that's like my true gift. That's just, you know, so we take it for granted until it shows up fully knocking on your door and you can't avoid it anymore.
That's right. And I think we have this, we can have a moment where all of a sudden we realize our whole life makes sense. Right? Of course, you know, having the parents that I had, growing up in the houses that I had, being bicultural, biracial, that ability that I find most multicultural, multiracial people have of like really being able to see different perspectives, having a lot of compassion for difference and openness to difference.
Totally.
That builds leadership qualities. And you know, I think the thing that I've just really had to grapple with until I came all the way through to the other side to realize, actually, it's because I don't have, nothing against people who follow that path, but for me, it's because I don't have the PhD. It's because I don't have the MBA and the corporate experience and the C-suite experience that I'm actually perfectly poised to hold the work the way that I do. Because the question that all my clients bump up against at some point is, who am I? Who am I to start this nonprofit? Who am I to run this thing? Who am I to start this business? Who am I to expand my work? And so they're hitting the same questions, and the things I could have so easily fallen back on. Well, I've got my education and I've got this, and that's what qualifies me. But what qualifies me, you know, is my deep, deep care. And the thing that I had to sit with is, would I ever say that an Indigenous grandmother who was running her community who couldn't read or write was not a leader because she hadn't worked in a C-suite corner office?
Right.
Because she didn't have an MBA. Like, it's laughable when I put it into that context. And I'm not saying that I embody the wisdom of an Indigenous grandmother. I am just saying, wait a minute. Often, I'm not talking about brain surgery here, but often we are qualified to do the work that we're called to do because of who we are. So that's the grapple that I've lived with.
And it's a beautiful grapple. And I want to even double click on, you know, I can so relate to being biracial, because I don't know if you felt this growing up, but it's like you were never, you know, too Indian. I'm Filipino and Indian. And it's like you were not too Indian or too Filipino, or, you know, people are always like, you look exotic. Like, what did you get that on?
Thanks.
Like, I don't know if that's exotic, like an endangered species or what.
Half flamingo, half panther. Exotic.
Like, I guess.
Yeah. It's a search for belonging, I think, for a lot of us. Yeah.
And, you know, to your point now, what's super exciting in this era for you, because you have accomplished so much. And I want to kind of, poke my head into the Global Sisterhood Day. Was that created out of a need for belonging? How did that come about?
Yeah, I think that
because I think I found you around that time, actually.
Yeah, it's 10 years old now,
Yeah.
just over 10 years old. And yeah, I would say that the existential question of my life has been, who am I?
Yeah.
And that's probably true for most people. But the existential question of my life has been, who am I? Am I Indian? Am I white? What is white? Am I Scottish in English and Welsh? I don't know. I've never been there. Do I relate to who am I? And like you said, not fitting in, feeling like I fit in with the brown people or the white people or any people really. And so I think that search for belonging, that search for who I am through belonging, definitely shaped I've always been a girl's girl and then a woman's woman. Like I've always been a person that has lots of girlfriends and close girlfriends. And I think that was also growing up with divorced parents and really finding like family with my friends, even as a child. But yeah, I think I've always been like a friendship ringleader, kind of pulling people together and connecting people and wanting to hang out and wanting to go deeper. But Global Sisterhood Day, even though I had all of that, it actually came in a dream.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had a dream one day. I very clearly remember the night. And it was a beautiful dream, but I woke up in the morning with this idea of creating this. The question that I had heard so often from people is, how do you find friends and how do you make close friends? Or like, I have friends, but they don't want to go deep, or we don't go deep, or I live somewhere. I don't think any of my people live here. I don't know that I've always been awkward and I don't know how to make friends. And so I wanted to create something, or I was really called to create something that was free, that people would never have to pay for, that just gave a really simple framework and a date, a reason to gather and to ask deep questions and just to be together. That's it. Nothing fancy. If you want to make a fancy altar, go for it. But you can also just light a candle and sit down with glasses of water and here are your prompts. Go. And that's how it started. It started with a dream, and it started with the intention of creating a simple space where women could gather and be together and share what is deep in their hearts.
Ooh. And now, I mean, wow, 10 years later.
Yeah.
What have you learned, and how has it informed, you stepping into motherhood? Because now I know you have 2 kids. Yeah. And how has it informed the sisterhood bonds that you have created along the way?
I think that I went from an understanding of the importance of deep friendship and connection, as an emotional support in our lives. So that we aren't isolated with our emotions. We aren't alone with them. We aren't trying to only take them to our one partner or our one person, but actually creating a web of connection that we can lean back into. Because it's true for all of us that we might have a really difficult moment that we want to talk to somebody about, that we want to be with somebody about, and the person we might be inclined to reach out to is just busy, or they've got their own thing going on. And so to be able to go, okay, you're full right now, or you just had a baby, so you can't really hold me right now, but I can go over here, right? So I always knew that was the emotional connection was important. I think what happened in becoming a mother, and also, before I became a mother, being close, living close to friends who were becoming mothers for the first time, and recognizing it's not just the emotional support, it's that I am here for you. I am here, to kind of hold your baby while you cry in the shower.
Right.
I am here to clean your dirty dishes and throw in a load of laundry while you hold your baby. And life is, the thing that we all know is true is life is a mystery. We never know. None of us want to get sick. None of us want our partners to get sick. None of us want those things to happen. And all of that can happen. And so to learn to not only, this is the biggest lesson for me. I have learned that if I am envisioning a world where we really show up for each other, like really, and where we have taken the worst of what capitalism has given us, which is everybody has a fence between their houses.
Yeah.
That's their family. This is my family. You figure yourself out. We'll figure ourselves out. Everybody needs their own blender and their own lawnmower and their own everything, right? You know, we have to hustle to work so that we can all buy our own washing machines and blenders and lawnmowers. What if we shared a lawnmower? I don't need to use my lawnmower all day, every day. I need to use it once every 2 weeks, right? We could share it. We could make meals for each other. We could say, oh, the person across the street is sick. Let's bring them food. You know, oh, that person they're going through a divorce. Let me check in and see if it would help for me to have their kids over for a play date so that they can do whatever they need to do. Cry in the bathtub, you know, this real community care. If I'm envisioning that is the future of our world, that we start becoming the mycelial network of connection that reshapes the world. Because listen, I have a lot of friends who are in the activist world, and a lot, you know, we talk about like burn down the systems, and I'm like, but then what's in its place? We got to start now, not just wait for things to fall apart. What if we started cutting holes in the fences and taking meals to the neighbors? And what I realized, this was my biggest learning in motherhood. If I want that kind of world, I have to not only be the one to initiate it, as I always have been, but I also have to be willing to receive it when it's my turn.
Oh, wow.
And I went through a period where I had a toddler. My partner at the time, his dad was going through surgery, and my dad was dying, and I had power of attorney. And I was running my business and the primary earner in the household. And it was just like so much.
Oh, wow.
And I literally did this most terrifying, vulnerable thing, which is make an actual spreadsheet, because I love a spreadsheet, with dates and times. And I emailed my friends, my local friends, and I said, if any of you are willing to bring us food, to come and hang out with my toddler and like play Play-Doh or take him to the park, I would be so grateful. And if you can't, I get it. It's totally fine. But if you can, thank you in advance. And my friends showed up.
Oh my gosh.
And I've had since one of my dear friends came to me and she was like, I have to tell you something. I want to admit something. She had become a mother since, like after that happened. She said, in the moment I kind of judged you. Like I was like, girl, figure it out on your own. You got money, you can do it. And she's like, now that I'm a mom, I get it. And you doing that has allowed me to say, I feel like I'm drowning and I don't know and I'm scared, or there's something going on with my baby and I don't know what to do, and not think that I have to only rely on myself and the paid professionals in my life for support. Yes, we can have paid professionals, and also I have friends. I can ask my friends. I can reach out to my friends and to really have the embodied experience of it's a joy to help, not only as the helper, but as the receiver of help.
It's so big, because I feel like so often, you know, kind of growing up in the West and in the Western culture, we're so, you know, individualism, and the individuating as well, that we forget the sense of community. And it's no wonder 1 in 3 Americans are lonely, and nearly half of us today can't say that we have meaningful personal connections. This is, by the way, a study from Cigna. I'll link it in the show notes as well. But we're isolating ourselves. We're isolating ourselves in the chase for what? More in the chase for...
Yeah, we're having miserable lives in the pursuit of a better life.
Yeah. Ooh.
You know, when I wonder if we were courageous and creative and really pushed ourselves out of our comfort zones And I get that this can be hard, especially when there's pressure from the outside to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and take care of yourself. It's hard to say, we also need each other. But I think that is a sort of universal wisdom. Mm-hmm. We need each other. I didn't sew these clothes. I didn't make the iPhone that I carry around every day. Other people participate in my life all the time, whether I think I'm letting them or not. Yeah. We need each other. And so that sort of, I find that when people bring that truthiness to one another, when it's not just, will you help me, but we need each other. Right now, I need help. I know that another time you might need help, and I got you. Mm-hmm. Whenever we can, let's make family out of friendship. Let's make family out of neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. What would that be like to actually really link arms with our immediate neighbors, with our closest friends, and with our families, and do things differently than the way that we are being trained to do them through, Western society and capitalism, essentially.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that, so often coming from the backgrounds we come from, right, you had such a dualistic lineage of both. And I think even, having so much gratitude for being born in kind of the Asian subculture where it is communal, like everyone is supporting
you like
everyone.
it or not.
Whether you like it or not, it's just like
we are up in each other's business.
We are coming for you. And I remember distinctly, like, there was a time where, I had tried to do all of the things in, stepping into motherhood, the natural birth, all of the things, except for one thing. And that one thing was I would not accept help from my Indian mother-in-law. I just wouldn't, or any of my elders for that matter. And later on, it was just because I wasn't used to receiving at all. There was a lot of huge trauma response around it. I had to grow up early. So for me, it was like I was used to taking care of everyone else. For the first time, I needed support. A, I didn't know how to ask for it. And B, I was resisting and rejecting. And I had all sorts of, kind of like all of the wounding that came up that I hadn't dealt with. But it was the most beautiful crack, to have. And to your point, I just admire that you had this kind of insight to say, my dad's dying, like all of these things are happening in my life. I need support.
Well, I think it's sometimes those moments of desperation, actually, or those moments when we realize we're pushed to our limits, And speaking of motherhood, it makes me so sad how little we as an overculture understand how tender early motherhood is. That this mother and baby are incredibly fragile and sort of between worlds still, and how much support we need. The cultures that we come from really get this and get it right, and to the degree that I remember one of my colleagues years and years ago when I worked in cosmetics, another Indian woman, she was like, she came back from maternity leave and she was like, I'm so glad to be back at work. She's like, I wasn't allowed to leave my bedroom for 5 weeks except to have a bath. And then as soon as I stepped out of the bath, there were 3 women in the room wrapping me in towels, like, But also, I remember being like, wow, it's also, when I became a mother, I remembered that story and I was like, it's so beautiful. Mm-hmm. It's so beautiful to be so tended and cared for. Mm. And in many ways, a new mother is like a new baby. Mm-hmm. And it's not, I think we have a lot of like, you did it, mama. And I say that to my friends who are having babies, like, you did it. But also that there is a strength there. And there is also at the same time an incredible tenderness and an incredible fragility there. And I mean fragility in the most beautiful sense. And to actually show up at that time, and perhaps for you, like a really vulnerable moment. Sometimes those are the moments where we're like, wow, my patterning really wants me to push everything away right now and be like, I'm fine. Just like when my, the whole thing that I was going through with my dad and having my little one and sick co-parent, everything in me was like, it's fine. Just figure it out, Nisha. Just like hire more help, like do the juggle more intensely. You can cook. And I started to just, I don't know if you've ever had these moments, Neeta, but I was like, I was making the plans. And as I was making the plans, I was feeling in my body like, there's no way. How am I going to do this all? There's just no way. And that sort of reckoning breaking point where I realized I actually don't have the capacity, and that is not a personal fault or flaw. That is, I am a human that is being stretched to the limits of my human capacity right now. And, I think there's so much in the personal development world about expanding our capacity and expanding our capacity. And I'm like, yes, and like there's a paradox here.
Totally.
Let's expand our capacity, but also let's not try to make up for a loss of community through that capacity expansion. Let's not forget that we also need co-regulation. While we need to learn how to regulate ourselves and our own nervous systems, we also are pack animals, and it's helpful sometimes to lean into a beloved and be with them
1000%.
When we're going through it. Or just even to share joy with someone else. And so I think the degree to which we can expand our capacity that doesn't tip into hyper individualism, that's beautiful. And then the degree to which we can lean into community in a way that doesn't tip into, I am not going to do anything for myself. You can do it all for me, which neither of us are inclined to do, apparently, is also beautiful.
Well, what do you say to people who are listening to this or watching this on YouTube and they are so hyper individual, and or maybe they kind of, if the world is like crumbling around them, they completely cocoon or they shut out in their quest, they're drowning for, their own support?
I would ask them, what is the most beautiful world that you can envision? And how are people behaving in that world? And then how do you have to behave and participate in that way now? And that if we want the kind of world where people show up for each other, we help our neighbors. I have to say, Neeta, I had this prompt on my website for a long time where people would put in their name and email and then share what their vision for the most beautiful world is. I have read thousands of responses. It was also the question that I would often ask people at like parties or whatever. It's the question that I've probably heard the most response to in my career, and thousands of responses. And the thing that has struck me is 100% of those responses, I have realized we are dreaming of the same world. Now, we might be looking at it through different facets. One person is talking about clean water and clean air, and another person is talking about global peace and harmony, and another person is talking about right relationship with the earth, and another person is talking about, us being able to be in our right work and follow our soul's calling. But nobody was like, I am all for a world of war and destruction where we have no choice but to fly to Mars. We're all dreaming of this thing working out, like this project of humanity on this earth, on this thriving earth working out. And so if that's what we're all envisioning, which it just gives me like chills to think about, that actually for all of our differences, like who should run the country and who should, this, that, and the other. For all of our differences, most people, when you get really down to it in conversation, want the same thing for the world. And so to say, we actually get to create that now. We get to start in our everyday interactions and choices to create that, which means that, and back to your question about what would I say to that person, it's not only the creating of it, it's also being in the receiving of it. So if you want a world where people are kind to one another and someone gives a compliment, you better receive that. If you want a world where, we take care of our sick neighbors and you just had a baby and someone says, can I bring you some food? You better say yes. We have to initiate the offering, the creating. We also sometimes have to initiate the asking.
Oh, that's big.
That's big.
Yeah.
It's big. And that's leadership. We don't think of that. We think of the leadership as being, I'm going to create the thing, I'm going to do the thing, I'm going to show up, I'm going to help. This is the thing that always gets really uncomfortable for people who are used to doing a lot and doing it on their own and being super capable people, which a lot, my clients really identify like type A, super capable, people, is that often we're like, oh, leadership is also being the one who rests in someone else's lap. Leadership is also saying, I'm doing too much.
Right.
And I don't even know what help I need, but I need to say, y'all, I need help. The vulnerability of putting our sort of soft belly up to the sky and saying, I don't know, but I need help is also leadership. And because I can't just expect that other people are going to do that.
Right. Or they're going to think of that for you, or they're going to.
That's right.
They're going to read your mind.
That's right. And so for me, in that terrifying, super cringy act of being like, here is a spreadsheet, please take care of my child and bring me food.
Sign up for a time.
I will tell you part of what got me to do that, because that was incredibly uncomfortable for me. But part of what got me to do that is I was like, well, if this is what I want us to be doing for each other, I've got to model it. It just sucks that right now modeling it means I have to ask for it for myself. Like I wanted to crawl under a rock. I could do that. I could ask for that for any one of my friends or even a stranger. But for myself, I was like, you got to be kidding. Life, please not me. Like
anybody else?
Maybe somebody could like quietly, if I pray, if I dream on it, if I just silently, imagine, telepathically try to tell my friend who I think has a little extra time on her hands to like just figure out that I want this. Nope, none of that's working. I'm going to have to ask. It was so vulnerable, wretchedly vulnerable, most nauseating thing I've probably ever had to do, and so worth it. And then I've watched ever since more and more blooming of community care through my friend group. I'm not saying that, I started it, but just we collaboratively created a culture where we care for each other.
That's big. So big. So now you are 2 kids in.
2 kids in.
And your kids are how old?
8 and 3.
8 and 3. And you are now dating.
I'm in a relationship.
You're in a relationship.
And it's not their dad.
And it's not their dad.
Yeah.
Okay. And how has that been? And take us through all of that. The finding love again as a mom of 2 and all of those things.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Were there any things that had to clear because you also too grew up with divorced parents?
Yeah.
Did that also come in your field?
Totally. It really did. And my kid's dad, his parents also separated. So both of us had a bit of a death grip, you could say, on our relationship as partners. Like, I think we were meant to come together. We were meant to have our children together. We were meant to stay together until it was the right time to let go. And also, we also really white knuckled it, really held on tight because we both came from divorced families. And, for me in particular, there was a lot of conflict between my parents that never cleared up and that really deeply impacted me. And I was afraid that we could follow that same path. And I was afraid for my children to have that experience in their lives. And so I think we were both just really trying to hold on and make something work until we recognized that the thing that was working was that we had 2 beautiful children. And they were right. They were meant to be. And that our relationship is meant to be a relationship of co-parenting, not a relationship of partners and lovers. And so accepting that was actually a really big relief. It was a really big relief to just say, it's not that our relationship is ending, it's that it's taking its true form. And I think that understanding that this isn't an ending of a relationship, this is an honesty in relationship. This is allowing the relationship to take its honest, true form, which is we're co-parents. We made these children, we're raising these children. That is correct. That is our path. And so because I felt so much relief and we had been trying for so long and it hadn't really been working, I felt when we let go, we were like, cool, I bless you in your life. Go on. you know, we both started exploring dating pretty quickly after we separated. You know, we had been that couple that was like not even in the same bedroom for quite a while. So it was like,
it was time.
It was beyond time. And it was right.
And how do you feel now that your kids get to experience both parents in the highest form ever, you know, and not in the way that you grew up with a lot of conflict, and that you both made this conscious decision to see the greater good instead of continue to white knuckle?
It's been really healing for my inner child, actually, to work together at cultivating the kind of co-parenting relationship that my parents didn't have. And to see my children have experiences of mom and dad and even mom and dad and new partners in the same space together. And it's okay. We can be in the same space together and it's okay. And, you know, we can cross-pollinate with families, you know, like I just reached out to my family and made sure that my kid's dad was on the invite list at Christmas, you know, and also he might have family coming into town and that his family would be on the invite list at Christmas. And so we're just trying to do this in what I think is a way that expresses a more expansive definition of family. And it's been really healing to my inner child to do that. It's been really beautiful to see how comfortable my kids feel talking about me to their dad, talking about their fun with their dad to me. And it's been really beautiful. And then to meet someone new who also has kids and start the family integration process has just been really, really special.
So again, modeling this new paradigm of leadership and family leadership.
Yeah, that we don't have to, you know, my ex and I, it's not an abusive relationship. I understand, like, there's a lot of nuance here if people come from that kind of, you know, relational background. It's a different situation. You're going to make different choices. But in our case, to be able to say, I don't need to cut you out of my life. We don't need to be cold and clinical and business, and that actually we can find a way that truly is honestly works for us to weave together. You know, it's not to say there's no boundaries. There's lots of boundaries. There's lots of agreements in place, but we're finding the way that works for us to do family in a way that is more expansive. And the biggest thing that I wanted for my kids was the thing that I didn't have, which was that they could feel like their family was integrated and whole and complete, even though it was taking on a new shape. That they felt like they would never have to hide their joy of their experiences with me and also their frustrations with me from their dad, and vice versa, that they would never have to hide, we had a really fun time with daddy, or daddy's upsetting me about this thing, for fear about how him and I might interact with each other based on that. I just always wanted my kids to feel like they didn't have to be adults, that they could just be kids. And so far, seems like it's working. Okay, this is
we
got a long way to go.
This is great. Yeah. And you talk a lot about, you know, devotional leadership. And what do you think, how do you think that devotional leadership really has played part in the different arenas of your life?
So when I talk about devotional leadership, because people are like, okay, you threw a word in front of leadership. What does this mean? I like to contrast it with what I call distorted leadership, which is most of what we see in the world. So often when I first am working with people, I'll ask them like, and anyone listening can do this now, close your eyes, think of the word leader. What do you see? Now, sometimes people see somebody that is super aspirational to them. They're like, and then often their reaction is like, oh, I feel small compared to that person. They're so amazing. But often what they picture is someone that they're like, I am not like that at all. Or even I would never want to be like that. So a lot of times when I ask people this question, they'll say like, I saw an old white dude in a Navy suit.
Yeah.
Being like really dominating, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And these ideas that leadership is about domination, about hierarchy, about calling the shots, and kind of regardless of the impact on others, to me, that's not leadership. That's domination. If I'm disciplining my kids by smacking them around, that's not leadership. That's domination.
Right.
To me, devotional leadership is deeply relational. It is non-hierarchical in the sense of we all have our role and all of our roles matter. Does it mean that I don't parent my kids? Of course I parent my kids. Of course I say, it's cold outside. You do have to put your coat on. You do have to put your scarf on. But it doesn't mean that I think they are less than me. So when I have embraced, as I have and continue to embrace this concept of devotional leadership that is deeply relational, that includes our bodies, that includes the earth, that includes a respect for one another and a deep care for one another that's actually fueled and driven by love and care, not by getting.
Right.
As I embody that, that just floods into every area of life. And then it gives me infinite opportunities in every moment to practice it. And so in my parenting, it might look like, collaborating with my co-parent in a way that we're looking for a win-win, right? It might look like...
So it's co-collaborating or co-creating.
Yeah. It might look like... when we're in a stuck moment around co-parenting, going higher and connecting back to the vision of, okay, we're in a sticky moment right now. We're trying to figure something out, but like, what do we ultimately want here? And then how do we map that into the choice that we make in this moment and how we relate to each other in this moment?
I love how you said, go back to the vision.
Yeah.
And go back to envisioning. Because I think so often, especially in the heat of the moment, or especially when we are in disagreeing mode or in disagreements, or in conflict, we forget that because we're so heated that we're like, okay, what's the vision of the relationship that we wish to have? Totally. And then bring it back down. I love that so much. So do you think it's like softening into?
I think that it is.
Because if leadership is like, that hard and that very masculine, is the devotional leadership more of this feminine approach?
I think it's more integrated.
Okay.
I think it's like, how do we actually embody our full range? And what is the vision that we're orienting to? And what are the values that contribute to that vision? If I'm envisioning a kind of world where we really care for one another, then values like equity, values like respect and honor, values like omni-consideration, where I'm going like, okay, I could get this cheap thing that was like, probably made by, children in the global South, or like I could make a choice that, I can afford to make because like, again, there's a lot of considerations here, but maybe I'm going to make the choice that feels a little bit more aligned with my values, right? So it's these moment to moment imperfect choices that we get to make that orient towards the kind of world that we want to create, the kind of businesses that we want to create, the kind of people that we want our children to grow into. If I want my children to be confident, caring people, how do I guide them? What do I ask, how do I ask them to relate to and regard other people? What kind of considerations and conversations do we have? I'm not saying I'm perfect. I ordered something on Amazon yesterday. Like, I've lost my cool on my kids before. Like, we're all human.
Right.
But I think that part of devotional leadership is actually saying, we're all human. And also, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to have to grapple with the grief of the ways that I'm imperfect, the grief of the ways that I can't always totally align with my values because I'm living in a world and systems that are kind of structured to not make that particularly easy. And there's some grief tending that we got to do in there. And there's also so much possibility and so much creativity that we get to lean into.
I feel like all of what you are sharing is so embodied in the work that you have been leading for 2 decades now. So how does one get a hold of everything that you are offering? What is exciting for you these days? How can people get more connected with the work that you are doing in the world for devotional leadership to really shine through?
Thank you. Yeah. I have a online community called Soul of Leadership that I'm really passionate about.
I love that.
Soul of Leadership is an ongoing membership community and just a really beautiful community where folks can come in and really grapple with complexity and difference and nuance, and also orient ourselves towards a more beautiful world and cultivate what I consider to be devotional leadership qualities, soulful leadership qualities like sovereignty, like integrity, like courage, like receptivity. How do we actually become sovereign, become receptive, become trusting beings in this complex world, so that everything that we do, the choices that we make, come from that foundation of our beingness. So that's Soul of Leadership. And then I also have other courses that I run through the year, including a 6-month council that I have run now this is my 14th year.
14th year?
14 years running
my goodness.
Intimate councils for women.
Wow.
And my focus really is on women practitioners, facilitators, service professionals who do really beautiful work and need to find the way to do that work that is really truly in alignment with who they are and the kind of world that they want to be part of co-creating that also really works for them, their lives, their bodies, their families, and so on. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. We will link. What's the best way to link that? Is it nishamoodley.com?
Yes. Everything is found through my website.
Okay. Amazing. And I know you have a freebie for us.
Yes.
A guided meditation.
Yes. So on my website, folks can find this guided meditation to connect with your elder self.
Oh, I love
so
that.
We live in a time where a lot of us, a lot of my conversations with my friends were sort of lamenting this longing to have elder wisdom in our lives, like rooted, embodied elder wisdom. And they're out there. So not to take away from the elders that are out there that are making themselves available to guide and lead us. And also, we live, many of us, like trying to make decisions about, should I go this way or that way with my business? Or, how do I want to navigate this challenge in my life? What decision do I want to make? And so this is a meditation to guide you to meet your 80-year-old self and hear what wisdom they have to share about the questions that we're holding in our lives.
Oh, so good. Yeah. So good, Nisha.
My best business advisor, my best parenting coach, I also work with living, breathing, professionals and facilitators, but I also love for those, moment to moment questions, and also to sort of tap into my own truth about things, my own orientation. I often visit my elder self for wisdom.
It's so good, and it's so untapped. And I feel like you are such a gem and a waterfall of so much potent, incredible info and unlocking codes for us all to tune back into the divinity within ourselves. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Neeta.
So beautiful. And we have a spill the chai section, and you've answered so much of what we were kind of go into around dating again. So I will ask you this: favorite ritual currently for yourself?
Just turning on music and moving the way that my creature body wants to move.
Oh, yes.
For a couple of songs.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And one word that describes this season?
Eros.
Oh, yes. Yes, queen. Let's bring it. Thank you, love. This has been magical.
Thank you. So great to be with you.
Welcome back to the other side. Wow. Powerful Nisha Moodley. If you haven't been following her or seeing what she's been up to or listening to her podcast, we will link everything in the show notes. But you can actually run to Instagram and follow her at Nisha Moodley. She is the OG, and I consider her an elder because she has wisdom pouring out of every inch of her pores. And she is also on Facebook at Nisha Moodley, and you can get that freebie at nishamoodley.com/join, where she will give you that guided meditation to commune with your best self, your highest self, an advisor for your life and work. And if you're curious about going into and starting your own spiritual journey, or just even your own navigation through your own divinity, I've linked 3 additional episodes that you can dive into and get juiced up on and get your learn on. And if this episode resonated with you in any way where you're questioning maybe the leadership in your home, or maybe even in the ways that you commune with other people, go ahead and share this with a friend, a bestie, a family member, somebody that could be a little bit more brave in creating community and allowing themselves to receive and also create the reality that they want. Now, if you are watching this on YouTube and you have not already hit the subscribe button, please do so you don't miss a beat, and it helps us grow the show more than you know. If you are listening to this on Spotify or iTunes, there is a like button. If you can hit that, it also helps us in so many ways. And let us know what you loved so much in the comments if you are watching this on YouTube, and or if you haven't already written a 5-star review. We so love that, and we will send you a free gift. All you have to do is screenshot your review and send it to support@globalgrit.co. That is support@globalgrit.co. I will see you soon. Don't forget to be just a little bit more brave. You know I've got so much more in store for you. So if you are really ready to dive in and keep owning your emotions like the boss that you are, click right here. Go ahead, don't be shy. I'll see you in the next one. Keep shining.